The following program has been arranged by the Division of Game and Fish.
Here is the story of the Bluegrass State's great outdoors.
This is Kentucky Afield.
Kentucky Afield.
Welcome to Kentucky Afield.
Kentucky Afield.
More than 50 years. And still fit as a fiddle.
This is Kentucky Afield Radio. This is Ron Rohde, Kentucky Afield's first host back in 1953. Now, I'm proud to present Charlie Baglin.
A neighborhood kid turned 2 years old. As a gift, I gave him his very first fishing license. It made him feel important. Looking at the calendar, there's another reason to be buying your fishing license or hunting license. March 1st begins the new license year. What options are available to you as a resident or as a visitor to our fair state or for your kids? The official word is coming up next from the Department of Fish and Wildlife on Kentucky Afield Radio.
I am a college student. My future is bright. I know soon it will be my turn to take care of the planet. But today I can continue to buy a Kentucky Nature license plate, the plates that say Nature's Finest. Since high school, they've saved miles of clean-flowing streams, forests, and in my lifetime, over 77,000 acres across our state. I can't wait to see what's down the road. See you with me. Next time you renew, choose the Nature Plate, plates that keep the bluegrass green.
Hunting elk in Kentucky is a dream come true for many, and I want to add my name to that list.
And I want to add mine.
If you want to add yours,
the Kentucky Fish and Wildlife website is Elk Central. The Pick 4 option lets you put your name in the hat for cow, bull, archery, or firearm.
Plus youth tags.
The deadline is midnight, April 30th.
This could be my year.
And it could be yours.
Register for incredible Kentucky elk hunting at fw.ky.gov.
Welcome to Kentucky Afield Radio. My name is Charlie Baglin. Boating, fishing, hunting, archery. Is there a decline in interest in these sports? Hardly. If you hunt, if you fish, or trap in Kentucky, as of March 1st, you'll need to shop for something else, your new hunting or fishing license. What are the options? We'll talk about those today. Joining us from his post in Mercer County, that's in central Kentucky near Harrodsburg, Conservation Officer Jason Wells. And from Fish and Wildlife Headquarters in Frankfort, Brian Clark with Public Affairs, and Vera King, who oversees license sales statewide. Vera, gentlemen, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Thanks.
What percentage of the people in Kentucky actually hold a hunting or fishing license? Last year, it was 1 in 4, so you were saying 25%.
Yeah, we sell roughly 1 million licenses and permits a year. It's approximately 1 million participants. We probably have about 750,000 licensees.
Officer Wells, you see a lot of kids in the field that don't need licenses?
Oh, yes. There's a lot of kids out there that take advantage of the outdoors, and, you know, under 16 years old, they don't need a fishing license at all. People can't believe that their kid under 12 years old, doesn't have to have a license or permit or anything. They just got to go out in the field and take advantage of the resources.
I guess that's just for the ease of introducing them to the sport.
It is. The department's had a long history of, especially in the last 20, 25 years, of trying to make things easier for youths to participate and remove any barriers that would keep them from getting involved.
Officer Wells used the word need. They don't need a license. Why do we need licenses?
Part of the answer is that we as an agency are legally charged, legally required to conserve the fish and wildlife resources of the Commonwealth and to provide fish and wildlife related recreation opportunities. But we don't receive any state tax dollars. And so in order to fund the legally mandated mission that we have, we charge licenses. And so it's a user pay model where everyone benefits. And so the hunters and the anglers, the trappers and the boaters fund the lion's share of the work, but everyone gets to benefit because those who like to see wildlife or know that they exist or enjoy the economic benefits of them to the state get to enjoy those benefits, but they don't necessarily have to pay.
So when you're hearing on the news that there is a decline, let's say, in songbirds, or there's a problem with Asian carp, and you hear about the results of these studies, we don't spend tax dollars on those, like sales tax.
Right.
But license dollars.
That's correct.
What are the situations where you just would not need a license?
Really, that would just be the juniors. Everybody that's a senior, 65 and above, they still have to have a senior license. Disability, they have a special license. It's a $5 fee.
So if you're 12 and under and want to hunt, is that the same age for fishing?
No, it's 16 and above. You have to have a license for fishing.
What about military exemptions or landowner?
Landowner, no. You wouldn't have to have a license if you're going to hunt on your own land. But when it comes to the military, if you're on furlough or on leave, you have to have the papers with you.
On the landowner end of it, that is a common problem we see. Landowner, dependent children, and tenants. The tenant end of it, you have to live on the land and work the land to be exempt from that license. The dependent children, basically I describe that as when that child is not dependent on the parent anymore, when he or she has his own job, then they would not fall under that exemption where they don't have to have their license. They would have to go buy their license. Grandchildren hunting on the grandparents' property, that wouldn't apply there either. It's only landowner, dependent children, and tenants.
Let's say you are a tenant, you live on the land, you work the land, but you only work the land because you mow the backyard. Does that count?
No. It has to be some type of farming practice on that farm. If you were to bush hog the entire farm for the landowner and live on it, that's part of taking care of the farm. You need to be part of the farming operation.
Is there a situation where you would not need a license if you were hunting a species for which there is no season, like coyotes, groundhogs?
You need your license regardless of what you're hunting out in the field. That is all required to have your license.
If you are over 65, the most you'll spend on a license is $5 in Kentucky. If you're under 16 and fish and under 12 and hunt, you don't need a license at all.
Right.
We do also, another important aspect of state fishing and hunting license sales is that those comprise an important funding source for us to go and get grant money. When we pursue grants, for example, federal grants, typically they're a 50-50 or a 75-25 funding situation where we have to come up with a fourth to a half in state match. And so we can take license dollars and go and get federal grant dollars and multiply the impact of the license sale money.
I knew that this would come up, this matching fund concept. Now, for most people, this doesn't matter. They buy a fishing license or a hunting license for one reason, to keep from getting a ticket. They want to do it legally. You have a government agency to run, I understand that. You take the money, here you go, spend it wisely. Don't burden me with details, I've got fish to catch. Nonetheless, it comes up routinely on this show. It's part of the conversation for the nature license plates, for the Nature and Wildlife Fund. And here it is, we're talking about it again. Let me, if I can, put it in terms relevant to the non-accountants of Kentucky. Let's say you have a 12-year-old boy and the boy wants a new bike. Well, you'd like to see your son have a bike. Good exercise, ride around with his friends. Bike costs $200. And so the son says to the dad, "Dad, I want a new bike." And so you say to the child, "I want you to have a new bike too, but you're going to have to save your money. Money doesn't grow on trees. So here's what I'll do. I won't buy you the bike, but for every $1 you save, for every $1 you go out and rake leaves or mow lawns and you earn and you save, I'll match that dollar with $2. And suddenly the kid says, that's pretty cool. And so the young boy gets productive, saves his money, and voila, new bike. Is that a way to explain it?
That's right, and without that, we lose opportunities at funding. In other words, bringing money to Kentucky that other states can take advantage of in our place. And so in some cases, we have licenses or permits specifically for, at least in part, for the purpose of going in and being able to get federal dollars that helps all of us, that helps stock fish or build boat ramps or do conservation education, a variety of things.
The National Shooting Sports Foundation, this was a few years ago, they did a study and they said for every 2 hunters there are in the field this year, there's one hunter out there taking the year off. Do we see those type of situations here in Kentucky?
Yeah, we refer to that as lapsing. And then people that come and go into and out of hunting or fishing, we refer to that as churn, just kind of an industry term. In Kentucky, we did a survey a few years ago, and about 85 to 90% any given year of participants in hunting were participating the next year. So we don't have quite as much churn as the national average, which you quoted from National Shooting Sports Foundation. Fishing, however, in Kentucky and then most of the states experience a much higher rate of churn. So there are a lot of folks that when the weather's really nice and they have the opportunity, they may buy a license and go, or if they get an invitation to go to a neighbor's pond or go on a fishing trip to Kentucky Lake or Lake Cumberland, and it's an opportunistic kind of a thing, they may go ahead and buy a license and go that year, but they may not the next year, just depending on their circumstances.
We need to get to a break. More on what's in your wallet as far as sporting licenses are concerned. Stay tuned. You're listening to Kentucky Afield Radio. This is Charlie Baglin, and we are back on Kentucky Afield Radio. Today we're talking about the options for Kentucky hunting and fishing licenses. We were talking a while ago about how money from fishing licenses basically funds the Kentucky Department of Fish and Wildlife, and I assume that's common across the nation. Are most state fish and wildlife agencies license funded?
Yes.
Some have a little bit of sales tax assistance, but if we get this money from the licenses and we can turn around and use this money for federal grants, the same study said that if a third of the hunters who lapse over the course of the nation, that adds up to $97 million that could have been made available for conservation. $97 million across the nation. That would be incentive for me to buy my license if I'm going to use it or not, knowing that I could help contribute to that. If the State Department of Fish and Wildlife is looking at its budget, and they have to predict how many licenses will be sold, does that enter into it, Brian?
It does. So we operate on a biennium budget. That's a state budgetary process where we have to get approval for a 2-year window by the legislature in order to spend money. And so while we plan on a 2-year basis, our funding comes in on an annual basis. And so if we have a really lean year, we may have to back off of our budgetary planning and actually cut some areas. We run more like a business than most agencies because we are funded by these user fees instead of by a sort of a guaranteed source of tax income or tax revenues.
Officer Wells, let me ask you this. You've been in the field now for 10 years or so, you told me, right? Have you seen the number of hunters and fishermen stay level, go up, or go down over those 10 years in your county?
I would say in my county it's probably staying pretty level with the exception of maybe fishing license. They seem to be going up.
Vera, do you have a grip on those numbers? Are license sales overall going up or down?
I do. I was actually just looking at that. Fishing, is pretty consistent. It looks like it's a couple years it went up, and that could have been because of the weather, because of the economy, too, really plays a big role in it. With the sportsman's license, that has really climbed.
I was looking at ammoland.com, maybe you've seen it, but they were addressing the fact that they say on a national picture, hunting and fishing participation rates are up. And I've been in this business a long time, and I keep hearing, hunter numbers are going down, fishing licenses are going down, and I see the efforts that your shop is putting into this, Brian. Here's some of the reasons that ammoland.com was giving for these rates being up. It says, 1, the economic recession's over. We may have some higher incomes. Hunting for meat and the locavore movement, free-range chickens and antibiotic-free, hormone-free. That movement, Fish and Wildlife Agency recruitment and retention programs, agency marketing, Brian Clark. Current hunters and anglers are participating more often. They're getting their friends to do it. Returning military personnel, Afghanistan and Iraq. Re-engagement of lapsed hunters and lapsed anglers. And just plain new hunters and anglers coming into the fold. And that includes female, suburban, and young kids doing this.
That's true. I think all those are important factors.
Talk about the opportunities that Kentucky offers any of these groups. I'm thinking Boone and Crockett for one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Boone and Crockett is a record book or a record-keeping organization. Kentucky has been ranked in the last 10 years as a top record book quality or producing state for deer. And so whitetail hunters seek Kentucky out as a destination. So people that are interested in big bucks come here. We also have a very healthy population in general. So people that are interested in harvesting primarily deer, primarily for the meat, see Kentucky, especially our residents, but even non-residents see it as a great destination because we have around 1 million deer. And in Zone 1 counties, the counties where the deer are most populous, you can purchase unlimited additional deer permits to harvest as many antlerless deer as you want. And those are available over the counter for only $15 for 2 deer. So there's a tremendous opportunity for people to pursue deer if they're interested in harvesting meat. And people can have success knocking on doors with farmers because farmers want to have good crop production and have their population of deer lowered. And so while cold calling may not be as effective, knocking on doors of people that you know, that you have some kind of an connection with, is a great way to get access to a place to go and hunt for meat. Out of 120 counties, we have about 119 counties have had a Boone and Crockett record buck. And those are just ones that are actually measured and entered. So we probably have had Boone and Crockett bucks taken in all counties, and probably many that haven't been reported, officially recorded, because there is a process for doing that. Officer
Wells, do you get many comments from hunters there in Mercer County that think I just got a trophy?
Oh, every year we have great deer killed. This year I know of 180-inch plus deer, non-typical, and 170-inch plus deer killed in Mercer County. There is an abundance of good, older, mature deer in the county, and I see that statewide. It's not uncommon to run across 140, 150-inch deer these days.
These are indicators of how Kentucky fishing and hunting license fees do a little bit more than just pay the light bill.
The deer herd that we have today is a shining example of how license fees are used and how Fish and Wildlife Conservation is a great success, because without the investment of people in license sales and license dollars, buying licenses, we wouldn't have the deer herd we have today, because like in the early 1900s, we had as few as 1,000 deer statewide. We now have this tremendous resource, which is, even for non-hunters, it's a great economic boon, brings tourists to the state, hunters, people here for all kinds of wildlife-related recreation.
Other opportunities, other benefits by having that fishing and hunting license here in Kentucky would include fishing in neighborhoods lakes, the FINS program. You hear about every week on this show in the Fishing Report. They're stocked and ready to rock. And Kentucky is a user-friendly state if you like to hunt and fish. It's become that. And I've seen it in the last 10 years or so, especially with that FINS program.
It's a great program. Yeah, we have this Fishing in Neighborhoods, or FINS program, where we partner with about, I think it's the total number of lakes statewide is about 45 now. So we have like local community lakes that are in parks or in counties or cities, and we partner with them. We say, hey, we'll bring fish and stock these lakes periodically through the year to provide a quality fishery. If you will in turn make sure the trash is picked up, make sure the banks are weed eated so people can get to the water and fish. And so we can in turn sell licenses, which helps to support the stocking, the opportunity there. It's been a great program. We found on some of those lakes as high as 40-50% new anglers, people that haven't purchased a license before or didn't purchase last year, and they're coming out and participating for the first time or participating again.
Going up till the end of April, you have the opportunity to put your name in the hat if you want to hunt elk this year.
Absolutely. Folks can apply up through the month of April. Folks can apply once or 2 or 3 or 4 times. They can apply for each of the 4 different hunt types. So we have bull firearm, cow firearm, bull archery and crossbow, cow archery and crossbow. You can apply again once for each of those. And if you're a youth, you can actually apply another time. We have 10 dedicated youth-only elk permits, and they're either sex. So if you're drawing for one of those, you could take a bull or a cow.
It pays to be a kid in Kentucky.
Absolutely.
For elk season.
Talking about opportunities. We have the largest herd and hunt east of the Rocky Mountains. So we're actually, in terms of numbers of elk and numbers of permits to hunt them, we have a larger program than all the other states east of the Rockies that have elk.
Nice.
This is great opportunity, great resource. And 90% of the permits to residents, 10% to non-residents, again, which is a standard thing. It's a random drawing. There's no preference point system.
I want to close this part of the show by telling you a little success story of mine. A year ago, I bought my wife a fishing license. When I handed it to her, she said, "Why are you giving me this? I don't fish." And I said, "Well, you've always been interested in the outdoors. You've always been interested in wildlife. When you hear about threatened and endangered species and studies to protect them and songbird surveys when they're going up or they're going down or things we're doing for habitat improvement across the land that affects everybody, not just those who hunt or those who fish, you are now a stakeholder in this. You now are a part of it." And she said, "I didn't think of it that way." And so that's been pretty cool. And so she has that. And even if you don't use a license, you can still be proud to have one in your pocket.
That's absolutely true. And folks can, and we anecdotally get feedback from customers over the counter at shows who call in, have a question, whatever. But they tell us, "Hey, I buy my license every year, whether or not I go, because I know," as you said, Charlie, "I'm investing in the resource now and opportunities now, but also for future generations, so my kids and grandkids and great-grandkids can enjoy what we do today," which is a wonderful legacy.
We are up against a break, and so after that we will break it down when we come back. Fishing licenses, hunting, trapping, in-state, out-of-state, out-of-country. Plus, our fishing report is standing by. You're listening to Kentucky Afield Radio. We are back on Kentucky Afield Radio. This is Charlie Baglin. If you would like to hear this show again, it's easy to find our link. Just go to our Facebook page, Kentucky Afield Radio, put that in the search box, and there we will pop. You will find our weekly links. They are also available on iTunes. We are a podcast. And also search Kentucky Afield Radio on YouTube. More on the sporting licenses of Kentucky. First up, our fishing report.
This is Tom with your fishing report from the Northeast. Water temperatures continue to rise, as do the fishing opportunities around the area. One that is picking up well is the sauger behind the Greenup Lock and Dam. With slower flows, you can catch some fish from a boat below the dam, but if it is higher, your best bet is off the bank or in the tributary mouths. Fish vibrating crankbaits or curly-tailed grubs and jigs. Make sure with your jigs that they're heavy enough to stay down towards the bottom. Action on Cave Run Lake is picking up as well. I've seen pictures of some nice catches of largemouth bass coming from the upper sections of the lake, the Poppin' Rock to Banger areas. Crappie are slowly picking up as well, but have remained consistent in the upper reaches. Minnows and jigs are your go-tos here. Muskie action is also starting to heat up a little bit. For muskie, focus on sun-warmed banks, and your fishing speed should match the temperatures. The colder it is, the slower you should go. That should do it for us. Good luck and stay safe.
Kevin Fry with your Eastern Area Fisheries Report. The recent February trout stocking at Paintsville Lake has done well, and good numbers of fish still remaining around Big Island and coves in the lower lake. Catfishing reports picking up with some of the early warm weather. Fishing from 2 to 10 foot around shoreline areas with chicken liver bait catching fish. In addition to channel catfish, some blue cats are in catches at Dewey Lake. Crappie success continues to be good with minnows and tube jigs. Both black and white crappie in catches at Carr Creek and Dewey Lakes, with fish congregated around wood and brush piles. At Paintsville Lake, best fishing for black and white crappie has been in the upper lake branches of Paddoker and Little Paint. Largemouth bass fishing has been improving on a variety of baits. Also, crappie anglers getting some bass on minnows.
Hi, this is Eric Cummins with your Southwest Kentucky Fishing Report. White bass and walleye are on the move up Noland, Green, and Barren rivers above the lakes. Tailwaters are also good spots fishing for the same, using swim baits or curly-tailed grubs. Muskie fishing at Green has been fair with jerk baits, lipless crankbaits, and spinner baits fishing the warmest or sun-drenched areas on the lower parts of the lake. Also in the upper areas of the lake, fish the stained water areas. That'll be warmer and they'll be up shallower. Crappie action has been good on channel drops and swings in 12 to 15 foot of water at Barren River Lake. Green River Lake crappie have been best over brush piles and structure in about 8 to 20 foot of water. As always, good luck and good fishing. And be sure your life jacket's got your back.
Hunting elk in Kentucky is a dream come true for many, and I want to add my name to that list.
And I want to add mine.
If you want to add yours,
the Kentucky Fish and Wildlife website is Elk Central. The Pick 4 option lets you put your name in the hat for cow, bull, archery, or firearm.
Plus youth tags.
The deadline is midnight, April 30th.
This could be my year.
And it could be yours.
Register for incredible Kentucky elk hunting at fw.ky.gov.
Kentucky's Nature and Wildlife Fund. You see it as a contribution option when you prepare your state tax return, but you also see it as songbirds and wildflowers. You can see it in clear flowing streams. Sometimes it's so secluded you may never see it at all. But if you only see it on your PC as you prepare your taxes, that's good too. Google it and see the difference this fund makes. Kentucky's Nature and Wildlife Fund, the natural tax shelter.
We're back into our second half hour on Kentucky Afield Radio. My name is Charlie Baglin. We get a rush on New Year's Day. A whole new year is ahead of us. What challenges await? What adventure? We have what we call a New Year's Day on March 1st every year, a new license year if you hunt, fish, or trap in Kentucky. About 1 person in 4 holds one of these licenses. They are people like you and me who like to hunt and fish and interact with wildlife, put a little food on the table in the process. These hunting and fishing licenses also help everybody else that doesn't do any of this, but still likes hummingbirds. They like to see songbirds in the backyard, squirrels in the front yard, a rabbit come bouncing through, an owl at night. But before we bring home that turkey in the spring, or stir up that pot of venison chili in November, or catch that mess of fish for the church picnic, the first thing we do is buy a license. A hunting or a fishing license is the first step in wildlife management. So, managing wildlife. Nobody assigns the deer to mate in November. Nobody schedules the bass to spawn in spring. And nobody out there is going to double-check that they have covered the duties of the bullfrog just in case the bullfrog needs to take a sick day. So what is it we're managing? We manage people. Season dates, bag limits, shooting hours, which sex of an animal to take, to balance the needs of wildlife with the needs of people, using the very best available science. Science meaning using measurement, using mathematics, ecology, weather, chemistry's in there, biology, so that we don't hunt animals to oblivion like we did in the 17 and 1800s. Wildlife conservation, wildlife management aims to halt the loss of the Earth's biological diversity. So there's a plan in place to get all this done. And a license is step 1. The show today is about hunting and fishing licenses. March 1st opens the new year for the license. The fishing license or the hunting license you had in your pocket from last year isn't any good anymore. You need a new one. You need to renew. In the studio to talk about this is the Assistant Chief of the Public Affairs Division for the Kentucky Department of Fish and Wildlife, Mr. Brian Clark. To his right is Vera King. She's in charge of license sales statewide in the state. From Mercer County near Harrodsburg, Conservation Officer Jason Wells. So let's just start by saying you want to fish in Kentucky, and you're also a resident of Kentucky. What do you have to do this legally?
Resident fish, and that's $20 fee.
Okay.
We have the senior license, that's 65 and older.
And that's a $5 license?
$5 fee, And that includes your trout stamp also. You don't have to purchase that separate.
So the senior license is the same thing as the sportsman's license, right?
Yes. The only thing with the senior license you would have to purchase would be a federal duck stamp if you duck hunt. Everything else is covered.
Okay. And what other options are there? Husband and wife license?
Yes, there's a joint fishing.
So the joint husband and wife license costs how much?
$36.
So it's a $4 discount over buying them separately.
Gotcha. Once upon a time, I heard you, Brian Clark, say there was a 3-year license. Did that ever materialize?
It did. So we actually put that in place in 2014. So we're just a few years into that, third year. And folks can purchase that 3-year license, and essentially they don't have to renew or buy another fishing license for 3 years.
If you're home on furlough, do you need a license?
As long as you carry your leave papers with you.
Okay. Here's another option, and I'm going to throw it out there just because I'm that way. But, Officer Wells, I want to hear your comment on this. Another option is just don't buy a license at all and roll the dice. What is the fine?
You could definitely do that. You don't have to buy a license. You can go out and fish, and the fine would be, depending on court costs, on average, that would be a $50 fine plus court costs, so about $200 to $225. And I would add that if you want to try out fishing, don't just risk it. We do have a one-day fishing license available for $7 for residents and $10 for non-residents.
I didn't know that. I was thinking that was just out of state.
No, we do have the one day.
Yep,
and I checked several of those. People just wanting to get out in the field for one day, or newcomers just wanting to try it out.
And there's a free weekend in June. When is that you can go and not have to pay a dime?
That is the first weekend of June.
And it's a Saturday-Sunday affair?
Yes, it is Saturday, Sunday. It's totally free. There's a lot of fishing events going on. If I'm not mistaken, all of our Fins lakes are stocked shortly before that. It's a good opportunity to get out and try it out, take the family, and have a good time.
If I am a fisherman and I want to fish in Kentucky, but I am from out of state, I may be from Spain or Mexico or Canada, or I may be from Indiana or Iowa. Does any of that, do you have to be, as long as you're out of state, the out-of-state fees will apply to you, right?
Yes.
Okay.
One thing we really need to talk about, too, is out-of-the-country residents and Amish. We have a lot of people that come in and visit from out of country, either with job-related or family, and they don't have a Social Security number. So we get a lot of phone calls. We have to actually give them a number for them to use. You would have to give us a call. You would have to plan ahead and call us, and we'll assign you a number. And then that number you would use to purchase your license with.
Okay. So what are my options if I'm out of state?
Well, we have a non-resident fish, which is $50, a one-day fish non-resident, which is $10, a 7-day, and a 15-day. A lot of times we see a lot of the 7-day used for non-residents. They'll come here for a week, visiting family or...
Trout stamps are necessary if you're resident or non-resident, right? How's that weigh in?
I see a lot of activity, especially on our Fins lakes. People are catching these trout. They're not used to catching trout. They've never seen a trout before, but they're first-time fishermen, and they're wanting to take those home. If you're going to keep a trout, you have to have a $10 trout stamp, or a trout permit. I call it a stamp. It used to be an actual stamp, but it's a $10 trout permit. You have to have those if you want to keep the trout. Now, if you just catch them and want to release them, you don't have to have that permit.
If you are out of state and want to fish in Kentucky but are under 16, is it still free?
Yes.
We do offer a lot of great opportunities, deeply discounted opportunities for non-resident youths as well as our own youths to participate here. So whether it's spring turkey or fall turkey for deer hunting, in addition to those dedicated like special weekends, free weekends, or youth-only hunting weekends, folks check those out for bringing their nephews and nieces, their grandkids, other folks from out of state. A lot of tremendous opportunities. Again, the licenses for kids are either exempted based on their age or they're deeply discounted.
The free fishing weekend for residents also applies to non-residents?
Yes.
First weekend of June.
That's right, first full weekend of June.
You're out in the field, Officer Wells. You get a crowd out there on the rivers and streams of our great state and in Mercer County that first weekend of June?
We do. There's several people that take opportunity to that. Like I said before, there's a lot of fishing events going on at the different areas and clubs, but, you know, on average, we'll see a little surge of activity on the lakes and rivers for that free fishing weekend, and it never fails that I'll forget about it and ask somebody for their fishing license, and they'll have to correct me.
That's funny. Let's say somebody comes into Kentucky and it's August, and they want to fish on their grandfather's property. Do they need a license?
Yes.
Yes, they would have to have a license.
There's some gray areas out there, I'm sure. Well, you know, I've been fishing over here for years and I never needed one. Or my uncle owns this property, or my uncle owns property in Callaway County, but I thought it'd be okay if I fished in Grayson County. I'm sure you hear, I thought, and then finish that sentence. Jason, would you do that?
We do. We see a lot of misconceptions out in the field where people think they are doing something right, and it turns out, you know, for all these years, they have needed a license. You know, a landowner in Kentucky can fish his own land, not any private land, but his own land. They have to have a license if they fish any waters in Kentucky that they do not own, private or public. And to add along with that, don't forget about the statewide limits, the creel limits. They do apply to your farm ponds, whether you own them or not. There is a limit to everywhere you fish, and it's always usually different. All of our lakes are managed by our fisheries biologists, and they have set limits for a reason. So don't forget about those limits, and check the guide or check on our website to make sure where you're fishing at, you know the limits and regulations. So even though you pay to build a pond, you pay to stock the fish, those still are regulated limits by the department.
I did not know that.
And some of these things we're talking about are the average person may look at that and think, well, that just seems really unreasonable. And some folks even complain to us about having to purchase a license and go on their neighbor or their relative's pond and fish. But the thing about fish and wildlife in Kentucky and really across North America is legally it's a public resource. And so like water and air, which individuals can't claim as their own, their own property, these things are public resources, and so they're managed for everyone's benefit, not just an individual, a landowner, a particular group. And so that's why these regulations are put in place, and that's why there are licenses sold to protect and also conserve these species for everyone's benefit.
Brian, the music is playing. We need to get to a break. Our final few minutes on licenses available in Kentucky to hunt, fish, and trap for the new license year beginning March 1st. Stay tuned as we wrap it up on Kentucky Afield Radio. We're back in our final few minutes on Kentucky Afield Radio. My name is Charlie Bagman, and we have talked about licenses and one other thing that you need in addition to your hunting license or your fishing license. If you hunt deer, you need a deer permit, a turkey tag. For elk, you will also need a tag. And if you hunt bear or chase bear, you need a tag for that as well. In addition, you will need a trout permit if you intend to keep the trout. Also, there are permits required for sandhill crane, the migratory game bird and waterfowl permit, pheasant quota hunt permit if you are drawn for that. Sounds like a lot of red tape, and it is, kinda, but it's all in place for a reason. So simply consult your fishing and hunting guide or your waterfowl guide, and you'll know in advance before you leave. In the studio, Vera King and Brian Clark. They are both from the Kentucky Department of Fish and Wildlife. They are from the Frankfort headquarters. And on the phone is Conservation Officer Jason Wells, assigned to Mercer County.
One thing I would like to add on that I see out in the field a lot, on the 1-day and 7-day hunting license, they are not valid for deer, elk, turkey, or bear. I see a lot of people coming in seeing that and not reading it all the way through, saying, well, all I need is a 7-day hunting license. You have to get an annual hunting license for big game. I don't know where the mix-up is in that, whether it's just not reading the literature or the vendor selling the wrong license, but make sure you understand that.
So deer, elk, turkey, and bear, so those are the big game animals of the state.
And that's true for residents as well. So if you want to hunt big game, you've got to have an annual license plus the permit for those big game species.
And military on furlough?
I think as long as they carry their papers, their furlough papers with them, I think that's how it reads, the regs read, as long as they carry their furlough papers with them.
Something we haven't talked about yet, and as we get toward the end of the show, trapping. Talk about what you need to trap in this state. And I'm going to put that out there blanket. Is that for residents and non-residents alike?
We have a resident trapping, a non-resident trapping, a landowner-tenant trapping, and a youth trapping that we have out there.
What are the animals we trap? For those that may not know, I'm going to guess river otter, bobcat, beaver. On the right line, Brian, what else we trap?
You are, that's right. Historically, we call them fur bears, a species that are desirable for fur. They have a nice pelt. People use them for all kinds of different purposes, for leather and clothing and different things. But, yeah, you're exactly right. Skunks, weasels, opossums historically, raccoons, if you didn't mention those, mink, that's right, foxes, or coyotes.
Wanted to get a definition of one word here that we haven't used this entire show. Poaching. I'm wondering, and maybe Officer Wells, you can best define what this is, but I'm going to guess poaching may be the wrong size, hunting the wrong day, having the wrong license, out there with the wrong intentions. How do you define poaching?
It is any kind of illegal activity out there, whether it be, a lot of people commonly refer to poaching and they think of somebody shooting from the roadway or spotlighting the deer at night and shooting him. It could be anything from taking a fish without a fishing license, shooting elk illegally, any illegal activity out there.
So an 11-year-old boy doesn't need a license yet keeps a bass that's an inch undersize. Would you say that that's poaching?
I would. That was taking advantage of the resource and taking an illegal bass.
So watch out for that. Poaching not a fun thing. I have one last question for Vera King. What's out there on the horizon? We talked about when you buy licenses and you go to the sporting goods store or wherever to buy it. Is the rumor true that maybe 1 year down the road that's going to be just an online purchase only?
It is going to be a web-based purchase. You're still going to be able to go to your agents out there in the field, whether a box store, and maybe some mom and pops. We're working with some of them. But it's going to be web-based. They're actually going to have their own computer and their printer, and they're going to go online and purchase a license just like they would with a terminal.
But as far as like when you put your name into the hat for an elk permit, that can only be done through the Fish and Wildlife website. But buying your normal hunting and fishing license won't be like that?
They will actually be able to do that at wherever they purchase the agents now. I mean, if they have a web-based system, they'll be able to go in there and say, okay, I want an elk permit too, and I want a Kentucky Afield subscription. Okay. They'll be able to do that also.
So they're just linking to the Kentucky Fish and Wildlife site. Mm-hmm. I got you. So is that being implemented when, do you think?
We are in the pilot project of it right now, so hopefully within the coming year.
Nice. Anything I should have asked but didn't? Something I left out that's important?
I would just inject if there are folks out there who are interested in participating but don't have the background or experience or even a mentor right now, the department has programs to encourage their participation, facilitate that. For example, we have a program for fishing called Hook and Cook, and it's designed to provide the experience and the resources for folks to be able to try fishing.
That's genius. Who wrote Hook and Cook? That's great. I love it. Did you do that?
The team of us that were brainstorming and came up with
that. That's beautiful.
And it's usually got a nice fish fry. That's part of the reason for the name. We have a nice fish fry built into that afternoon or morning of fishing. We provide the equipment for a nominal fee, the bait, the whole 9 yards for folks to come out and try it. And we have a similar program for hunting that we're doing primarily for deer and turkey right now, but it's called Field to Fork. And folks can get on our website, fw.ky.gov, and search for Hook and Cook or Field to Fork and find out about those opportunities. And we have those going on throughout the year.
Great. And the website, again, Fish and Wildlife, is fw.ky.gov. Lobster Wells, Brian Clark, Vera King, thanks so much for being on.
Thank you.
Ready, thank you.
No problem.
Everything that we have discussed is online. Any license you need, any permit, visit FW, that stands for Fish and Wildlife, fw.ky.gov. The hunting and fishing guides are online as well. The Kentucky Fish and Wildlife Information Center is a dandy resource. Call them at 800-858-1549. Again, 1-800-858-1549. Google it if you missed that number. They're open regular business hours, 8 to 4:30 Eastern, 7 to 3:30 Central. We are out of time. This is Charlie Baglin inviting you. Join us in a week, and we'll go inside outdoors again here on Kentucky Afield Radio.